Good evening, everybody. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and tonight I'm going to continue my review of Danica McKellar's book, Math Doesn't Suck. That's right, we're going to go into the next chapter, and this is how this one's going to go. Danica McKellar starts this chapter with a discussion of two young ladies. Both of these ladies have very different interests. One of these ladies likes unicorns. Since she likes unicorns, we're going to discuss unicorns in just a second. I would imagine this particular lady knew about unicorns, knew a lot about them. So let's go into their history. According to what history is available on these mythical animals, the people of India may have created the unicorn myth. I don't know that for sure, but they may have. There is a great debate about whether the people of India actually created the myth, but I will let you research the debate on your own, because I'm not going to get into it here. There are other sources that state that the unicorn myth could have started with the Chinese, but their version of a unicorn is a little different than what we think a unicorn looks like today. I will let you research that topic again on your own time. A guy by the name of Tisias, I don't know who he is, who was a physician and a historian, recorded the first unicorn stories that we possess today. He met with travelers that came from the country of India and recorded their stories on papyrus parchment. Okay. 1 century later, a mistranslation of biblical text ultimately created the name of the unicorn. Biblical scholars are trying to translate the Old Testament from Hebrew to Greek. They mistranslated the Hebrew word reem, and the Greek word they used was monokeros. You can look that up for yourself. A few centuries later, biblical scholars attempted again to translate the Old Testament from Greek to Latin. When they did, they translated the word monokeros to unicornus. Finally, the word became unicorn. I could discuss Marco Polo's account of what he thought unicorns looked like, but I think you'd rather me continue my review of this book, and specifically this chapter of the book. Let's just go on. The other lady that Danica McKellar mentions has very different interests. This particular young lady is a huge fan of heavy metal music, from what I understand, and invests very heavily in nail polish and nail polish remover. Apparently black is this young lady's favorite color. I can envision this young lady being a fan of bands like AC/DC, Metallica, and Kiss. Then Danica McKellar forms a proportion out of the only thing that these two young ladies seem to have in common. Both of these young ladies seem to have siblings. Specifically, these young ladies have sisters. And if I read this chapter correctly, these young ladies have younger sisters. At this point, you may presume that I will cover the topic of proportions, since this is the main topic of this particular chapter of Danica McKellar's book. But Euclid Book 10 covers the subject of proportions rather extensively, so I will recommend that you watch my Euclid Book 10 videos before you ask me anything about proportions. Eventually, I will publish a book entitled What's Square on a Straight Line. I will let you know when that book finally becomes available. Her discussion of proportions involves a tire that covers the digits of your body. Now, in case you don't know what a digit is, let's talk about the Latin word digitus, which means either finger or toe. Do you now see why Latin etymology is so important to a good education? Then Danica McKellar introduces the word relationship. But what I didn't find in this chapter is a heavy emphasis on family relationships. This could have become a very effective mnemonic device. Instead of emphasizing family relationships, Danica McKellar refers to plant life. Specifically, she refers to trees and flowers. Of course, a couple of paragraphs later, she brings up the word analogy. What is the etymology of the word analogy? I'm glad you asked. This word comes from the Greek prefix ana, which means either up or towards, and the Greek word logos, which can either mean a word or together words or even a ratio. So, knowing the etymology of the word analogy, what is its definition? In this case, it means finding a similarity between two objects that are for all intents and purposes unrelated. The next thing Danica McKellar shares in her book is a personal story. This story involves a camcorder and her first experience in becoming an amateur producer and director. She also discusses her struggles in finding suitable props for her first amateur home video. The story becomes a very effective mnemonic device, but it also serves a second purpose. From this story, fans of Danica McKellar are able to learn a great deal about her personal life. We learn about a dog that she has adopted as a teenager. We also learn that she loves fairy tales and superheroes. We also learn the name of her sister and one of her cousins. It's easier to learn from a person that we can relate to on a personal level. In this case, we can follow the logic of Danica McKellar because, after all, giving those details about her personal life gives you an idea of how she thinks. And if you get an idea how she thinks, you can follow along with whatever she's trying to teach. The more you know about a teacher, the more likely you'll be able to follow the teacher's work. So I will give Danica McKellar an A+ for this personal story. There is something else that people who read this book can take away from this story. Danica McKellar encourages her audience to be creative, and that is a healthy thing for teenagers to learn. It's truly better to create than to destroy. I will also have to admit that it's far easier to create a video today with modern video equipment than it is with a video cassette recorder in the latter half of the 20th century, hence camcorder. But this story does raise a very important question. How did Danica McKellar budget enough time to create these amateur videos? I mean, she was in school, she was working on set, and she has time to create amateur videos on top of that? Interesting. Okay. The next topic Danica McKellar covers in this chapter of her book is the topic of cross multiplication. This is rather easy. Okay? Let me show you how cross multiplication works. Let's say you have the numbers, hold on, 2/3 and 6/9. Now, here's the problem. Okay? Now, if you reduce this fraction, it's going to be 2/3 as well. Okay? So, as 2 is to 3, so as 6 is to 9. And you know this by Euclid Book 10. And I have explained this thoroughly in Euclid Book 10. You can cross multiply this. That's 18. And if you multiply 9 times 2, it's also 18. So this proportion works. That's cross multiplication. Okay. Only when you see the equal sign between two fractions can you use cross multiplication. It's the only time. And that comes very much in handy if you're trying to make the denominators of fractions equal to each other. Now, that seems pretty easy, don't you think? What if we went a little bit harder, shall we? No. Okay. You have 1/4 equaling x over 16. What's the x? Well, there's only one way to find out. First of all, I wanted to say, and I will say it again when I start reviewing hot X, that a variable is nothing more than a number in disguise. That's all you need to know. That number there is wearing a costume. That's the X costume. There you go. Okay, so if you multiply 16 by 1, you're going to get 16. If you multiply 4x, you're going to get 4x like that. Okay? So all you have to do is divide both these equations by 4. And so x is going to finally equal 4. Now you say, well, how does that apply to the original equation? Well, I'm going to show you. You remember how we originally had an x right here? Well, now we replace it with the 4 that we got for our answer. There you go. And as you know, if you reduce this fraction here, it will be this fraction. That's the only way it can go. Alright, the next topic Danica McKellar raises in her book is the topic of exercise and proper hydration. She specifically discusses her complexion and how dehydration can affect her complexion. But I wish she would have expanded this discussion in her book. Dehydration can affect more than just your complexion. Oh boy. It can also affect your digestive system, and if it affects your digestive system, your health can go down pretty quickly, I assure you. And if your digestion system goes bad, so does some of the other systems in your body. Trust me, that's how it happens. I personally think that if Danica McKellar had not become a television star, she probably would have joined a track team in high school, because she seems to like running, so I bet she could have also joined a college track team and possibly even gone on to the Olympics. But let's return to the topic of proportions. Danica McKellar forms a proportion from the miles she jogs every day to the amount of water she consumes every day. Of course, she also employs cross multiplication to solve her math problem. The next topic Danica McKellar discusses is measurement conversions, and boy, I'm glad she brought this up. If you are studying to become a pharmacy technician, you're going to have to know this really fast, okay? Because medicines can be converted from like pounds to other measurements from the metric system. And when that happens, you have that in a proportion, woo! It can be messy pretty quick. And I will explain this more thoroughly in a book that I will eventually publish called PTCB on a Budget. And you'll see this for yourself. So, conversions are very important. So, she was explaining converting the miles that she runs into kilometers. Yeah. They've really wanted us on the metric system for a long time, and so there you go. And what is the first thing that a teenager actually does when they have jogged several miles? Well, of course, they're going to reach for a snack of some kind, and of course, they're going to rehydrate themselves first, and then they'll reach for some kind of a snack, because they're going to be hungry at that point. So, in this case, Danica McKellar starts a discussion of pastries. Alright? And she admits that she scours the internet for recipes, and she apparently found one. So she takes a mixed fraction and converts it into an improper fraction. Well, you can do that. Or that would be more like taking the long way home. Convert those fractions to decimals, solve it, and if you want to convert it back to a fraction after that, go ahead. But solve it as a decimal. It's a lot easier. Give me a break. Alright. The last topic Danica McKellar places in this chapter of her book is gift giving. Apparently, she had purchased a piece of jewelry for one of her friends and was going to give it to her. But before she bought this piece of jewelry, she had to know the measurement of the mesh of the ring. Now, for those of us who don't know anything about a mesh of a ring, let me tell you something. The translation of that is the width of the ring. Okay, if you have a ring that you wear on your finger, there's going to be a width to the dang thing, and that's called the mesh. So, now you know. This measurement can be expressed in centimeters, millimeters, inches. Take your pick. So, it depends on who you're buying this from. If you're buying it from the United States, it'd probably be in inches. If you're buying it from some European country, it could be in centimeters, millimeters, you name it, whatever. It literally could be in the metric system. Alright, so, anyway, that's all she discussed in her book. I know she did give some practice problems. I know the last time I went through them, I was like, man, I'm not going to do this. So, anyway, that's it. Alright, as I have told you guys, and I'm going to tell you this again, I wanted to let you know that I have a summer reading project. Oh, yes. As you well know, I have almost finished my review of Danica McKellar's Math Doesn't Suck book. So, I wanted to go on, and I have decided to do that. This time, I'm going to review Danica McKellar's book called Hot X Algebra Exposed. And I will tell you what's in this book. Well, I guess I will tell you really more like what I think about what's in this book would be far more accurate. I'm not going to just tell you what's in it. I'm going to tell you what I actually think of what's in it. That's what a review is. I'm going to review it in the same type of detail as I have done with these Math Doesn't Suck books. Math Doesn't Suck book. One book, sorry. So, I hope you guys will tune into that. I will tell you more in a future video, so I'd like for you to stay tuned.